This is a great class to learn how to do trees and to use a fan brush. I broke it down and made it very simple. So this class is great for kids and great for beginners and people who haven't painted for a long time. So trust me, you'll be able to paint this. I will be painting on a pre-gessoed black canvas. This is a 16 by 20 inch canvas that is stretched over a wood frame. These are my preferred type of canvas to paint on. If you're painting on a rock or glass or any fun, cool thing, just remember that the techniques I'm showing you are basically the same. Just plan accordingly with your surface. You can paint this painting vertical. You could paint it horizontal. I think painting this design is way better when it's horizontal because you'll have a lot of room to work with in your trees. Now, I was painting earlier today and I had started this class, and at the end I didn't quite like what I had and I just thought it was horrible. So I thought I'd try again and do it all over again straight from the beginning. Hopefully this one might be better. The reason why I'm telling you this is that I know this painting looks hard and it looks difficult, but even me, who's been painting for 20 years, I still have moments where I come up with duds. So keep practicing. If it doesn't come out great your first time, don't worry. You could always take this class over and over again, and you know, you could change the design. Maybe you'll have some cool happy accidents. I love it when I have happy accidents, but sometimes if you start getting stressed out, that's when I know for me I need to stop and start over again. So if you already have a white surface that you are working on, go ahead and paint it black. I prefer to paint in acrylic paint. You can use oil paint. The only problem with oil paint is that it's going to last a little bit longer to dry. And for me and my personality, I don't want to wait 3 months for it to completely cure. So I'm going to go ahead and use acrylics. So if you're painting a large surface one color, this is the brush I recommend to use. This is a flat square brush. It's very flat and it's square. This just helps cover the space really fast and easy. Go ahead and just add the black paint onto your surface and then, you know, work it around and paint. Now, you could do this where you apply the trees while the black is still wet. If you do that, you will get a lot of gray tones happening, which could totally be cool, and you'll be in grayscale, and that could be awesome. I don't know. I want to add color with my painting, and I don't really want to go into grays. So I want to be a little bit more vibrant with my colors, which makes it then a little bit easier. So because of that, I recommend using your handy dandy hair dryer and dry it as much as you can all the way completely, like till it's not even shiny anymore. I feel that it gives me a better look when I do that. Use your paper towel, and also every so often you need fresh clean water, so make sure it's clean. If it gets all icky and nasty, go ahead and clean it, dump it down the sink periodically, especially since we're going to be working with a lot of white. We're going to need to wash our brush in clean water. Otherwise, we're going to mix the paint colors, and we don't really want to do that. I mean, we kind of do, but we don't want to have too much mixing because I want this to be very, like, pop arty. Okay, so I'm going to be using my paper plate. This is from my last painting that didn't work out. Hideous. I know, it happens. Be patient with yourself. These boo-boos happen. So what I've done here is I've applied green onto my palette, and I have white. So don't let them like mix together on the palette. We're going to do all the mixing on the canvas itself. I'll leave that over to the side. Now, I'm going to use this brush, which is a flat square brush, and notice how it's kind of small, tiny. I feel that I have more control when I use smaller brushes. You can do this with a round if you'd like, I just feel for me, using the flat square seems to work a little bit better to achieve this look that I'm trying to do. So I'm going to work with the moon in the background. So I'm going to dip it. Watch how I dip my paint. I'm just going to dip a little bit and see how I've added the paint. It's hardly just to the tip. I didn't go and smush it all around and totally load it up with a lot of paint, just a little bit. Now every time you get paint on your canvas, always try to think about this. Just a little bit of a tiny dab. We don't need to be going all up into the metal part of the brush, which is the filament. So don't be adding paint all up in there. There's no point. You'll have better control if you just add paint to the tips of the brush and to the tips of the bristles. Now this moon can be as big or as small as you want. There's no stress or pressure. The only thing I'm interested in is that the center is the whitest part, and then it kind of comes out like in waves. So I'm going to go, I mean, you could off center just ever so slightly, but I'm going to do hyperrealism, which is art that is a little like more to the imagination, that it's exaggerated in the beauty, and the everything just lines up perfectly. So I'm just going to make my moon right in the middle. Oftentimes though, off-centered, that's where things should really be. Off-centered is usually good, but for this one, I think centered would be fine. Okay, so I got my little dot in the middle. Now I'm going to do a technique called dry brushing, and I'm going to work my way around, and I am on purpose making circles. Circles, okay? And notice how I'm not adding any more paint. I got it to be about that big. I'm going to come back in and probably make it a little bit smaller. Now, notice how between my spiral areas, I have some areas that are kind of black, that are from behind. Don't worry, that's all good. We want that. That's okay. I want to have little bits of black and white. And just blend, blend, blend until you get something you like and you're happy with what you see. Now when you got your moon just so, and you're like, yeah, okay, it works, go ahead and get some fresh paint and then just dab it in the middle and then allow that to be just straight white. Super straight white, no real indentations. Now normally in my classes I always teach about putting craters and stuff like that in the moon, but this one is going to be a less is more concept. So I'm just going to let my moon be white. Now as it dries, you might notice on your canvas that the paint isn't quite what you thought it was and it kind of dulls out. That's okay. We can just add another layer of white and another layer of white. But I'm only going to do that to the moon. I'm not going to do that to my little areas around the moon. Okay, so I like it. Since I dry brushed, it's already pretty dry. I'm going to come over here with, washed my brush, wiped off the excess paint. I'm going to come in here with my green. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to dry brush in circles. So some of these little areas I'm going to be able to see white, and some are going to be, I can just see green. And then some of the little spaces, all we see is the black. I'm going to come in here and we're dry brushing. So dry brush over dry brush. Blend it in a little, all over the place. If you feel maybe you've added too much green and you would like to not have the glow be as much as the glow is, you could always add a little bit more white over top. So just as an example, I'll do a little bit here and I'll add a little bit more white. Make sure that you're continuing in circles and you don't really have we don't want corners. We just want everything to blend together very nicely. Now I'm going to come out here with some of the green, like the light, hardly any, the hardly any paint on my brush at all, and I'm just going to come to the outside ring of this moon, and it's going to be ever so slight, ever so light. I'm not going to see a lot of paint. It's like it's skipping on the canvas because of the texture of the fabric of the canvas a little bit, like the color skipping. There's a lot of holes and whatnot that I could see. And that's about it for the glow of the moon. Just keep working it until you got something you like and you're really happy with. I'm going to go ahead, clean out my brush pretty good all the way, get that green all the way out. And I noticed on mine, I feel like I should make my moon just a tad bit bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and add some more white there and just circle it around and make it a nice big moon. And I guess, you know, if you wanted to, you could at this point put those, like do a stippling effect on top of the moon and get some of those craters. Your moon doesn't have to be a perfect circle because the moon is always waxing and waning in the sky for the different times of the month and everything. So don't worry about it. If you make your moon slightly uncircular, it's more the better. The more the better. You'll get a better moon. You might, like right here on accident without trying it, I did some circles in here and I had a happy accident where I made a smiley face. I have like 2 dark spots and then I have a smiley face and what appears to be a nose. It's a little tiny touch. It was total accident. I like how it looks. I'm going to keep it. All right, so let's go ahead and add some stars to the painting. Wash your paintbrush. Make sure you have absolutely no green. I'm going to continue using this brush. I'm going to make it really wet and without bending or wiping off any of the water. I'm going to come in here, add a little to the palette, a little bit of water, and then pull over the little biggest amount of water. So I'm diluting the paint with some fresh, clean white water. It's very diluted. That means it's going to fly off my brush way easier to create these stars if I have really fluid, wet paint versus if I have dry, thick paint. We want a thin-bodied paint for this. So I'm going to add more water and mix it around so you get a good consistency that you're happy with. A good liberal amount on the brush. So now I'm going to flick. Look at how my hand is. I'm going to flick, flick. The more you flick, the smaller your stars will be. I like big stars, so I'm going to come in here and get more paint. I only like to flick maybe 2 to 3 times and then apply more paint so I have big stars. Now, you will get some spray, like all over there. I got spray everywhere. So this might be something you might want to flick the paint outside or something if you're not willing to get super messy and dirty. I like to be extra with stars because I just think it's totally cool to have lots of stars. I am totally into stars and space and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's going to be extra, extra, especially because this is a scene in which it's like we're walking in the woods, and so there's really no city lights or anything going on. So it's going to be extra dark. We're going to see lots of cool things. If you get any little flicks that are linear, that's totally cool, because what those start looking like are, they look like shooting stars. So count yourself lucky if you get a happy accident and get a line. I, at this moment, did not get any. Didn't get any, so oh well. It's okay though, not all of your paintings need a shooting star in them. Yes, they're cool and I always try to incorporate them, but if they don't happen, they don't happen. That's part of how things go, you know? Okay, so now I'm going to take a moment just to help me out here. I'm going to dry my canvas. I recommend you do the same thing. Now, if you made your paint way too watery, be careful with your hairdryer, because then you're going to get like the look where the wind of the hairdryer will be pushing the paint and then you will get some lines. that method of getting lines though for a shooting star, it kind of, I'm going to excuse my frankness here, but honestly, it just looks like spit because of the way that the fluidness of the paint moves across the canvas. That's the end result of what it would look like. And so if you didn't get any shooting stars like I didn't, you can always paint them in. I would recommend doing that at the end, so then you can really pick where it's going to look cool to have a shooting star. I am thinking about possibly this guy being my shooting star because he's huge, which all you would need to do is take a liner brush and then just draw a straight line. You could curve the line a little bit, that would be cool. And then NASA has some photographs from Hubble that the line is kind of like there's two lines instead of one, because of how, like, the science of how it's the moving, the sun, and then how the spray is coming off of the comet itself. So, I mean, there's totally a lot of different ways to do it, but I'm going to let mine be what it is. And then at the end, if I feel that it would look cute then I'm going to add it. So let's go ahead and take a moment and dry our paintings. Now I'm going to hold my hair dryer really high so that way I'm not really pushing the paint around. Like, I won't get those weird lines occurring from my hair dryer. You'll notice that your big globs of paint are probably not dry yet, but all the little guys are. And for me, because these guys are kind of small, that's fine. We'll be covering up them. Okay, so now I'm going to take my fan brush. That's the brush that's all fanny and big. I like to use my finger and come over here back and forth and kind of separate the fibers. I feel like the more I separate them, the better my trees and the better my paintings come out, because I've got lots of little fibers that are clumped together versus having like 2 or 3 sections. I've got a lot of small sections. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to use my dark green. Well, actually, you know what? I got ahead of myself. Let's kind of do a little bit of a layout. So I'm going to come in here with some white, and I'm going to do the basic layout of my path. And I want my path to be a tad bit windy just because I think it looks great. So I'm going to come over here, and it's going to be small in the background, and as it comes towards me, it's going to be wider and bigger. So my biggest one is going to be about meow length, and then my smallest one is going to be about meow. And so I'm going to go back and forth, and it's almost like the lengths are triangles. I'm not gonna overwork it. I'm just a little bit, just to cover up. I've got a basic idea, and do you see how a triangle is starting to form? Long, wide on the bottom and big on the top. Now this is the basic idea of where my path is. All right, so I'm gonna put that off to the side, and now I'm gonna use a liner brush. Now a liner brush is a tiny, skinny brush that's in a nice, pretty point. Here's mine. See, a tiny little guy. I'm gonna dip it in the water because it's a dry brush and I've got my fibers going everywhere. I'm gonna pinch it and make it a nice, pretty point. I like it. Nice, pretty point now. And I'm going to think about where my fence posts are going to be. Dip it into my white. And I'm going to think they want to be thick, and these posts want to be thick and wide. The closer they are to me, the farther they get away, the posts are going to get closer to themselves, and they're going to get shorter and skinnier. So my big post is going to be about here. It's a big guy. Got another one here, and then they get closer to each other, and then they get smaller and shorter. So see how the lengths of the lines have gotten shorter. I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 posts. It really doesn't matter exactly how many posts you have. Just have a couple of them. Sometimes I like to lay them out, and then I feel like, you know what? The distance of these posts and these posts seem to be the same. So what I can do to fix that is I'll just add another little post in the middle here. And voila, the distance between posts gets a little bit shorter and closer together. I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to give my thing a little bit of a turn here. So I'm going to add little guys. And then as they go down, they're getting wider. Okay, I got that going out. I'm going to do one more going out, and then I'm going to come back in. You don't have to do the coming back in if you don't want to, but I think it gives it a little bit more of a windy path if you do. A little more interesting of a path. So I'm going to come back in, and they're going to get longer and wider, and then I'm going to go back out. There we go. So I've got a little bit of a windiness there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be like there's wood here, so I want to connect them. So I'm going to start kind of in the middle, and I'm going to connect them from the middle to the other middle of the next one. Take your time. Remember to breathe. I prefer to make my lines as skinny as possible, and then I can always adjust as needed. There, so we connected them. Now let's do that on the other side. Let's connect them in the middle. So these two are kind of coming in. Now we're going to go back because it's a little windy path. Remember to have little skinny ones. This one, it kind of doesn't even show up. It's almost like it runs into itself. Then I'm going to go back over. So I'm just connecting them, each line from the middle to the middle. Don't worry if your line is not perfect. If you don't have a perfect, beautiful line, what it's going to suggest in your painting is it's going to say that there's snow on top of the wood, and it'll read really nicely. Okay, so now I'm going to do another line, and I'm going to do one that's slightly above the middle one. You don't have to do this second line above it, but I feel adding this extra little attention to detail just makes the painting that much cooler, and it, I don't know, it just seems to really work out nicely. A little extra detail. I'm going to do the same thing with this one over here. Notice how I'm not really going to the, I'm not at the very top of the post to the other top of the post. I'm still leaving a little bit. These ones kind of run together, that's okay. They run together and it's all okay, and it still works. Remember to keep your lines really skinny. Okay, so now once I have those lines, I'm going to work on my post again. Now, the closer the post is to me, the fatter the wood it's going to be. I mean, it was the same thing of the idea for the post that we were laying horizontal on the fence, but honestly, it's okay to not have it perfect with the dimensions, especially on this painting. The eye will fill it in. I am going to touch these up, the vertical ones, and make them thicker, the close ones to me. But then as they go further away, I'm going to allow them to be super skinny. So the liner brush is really what helps on this one. And don't worry if your horizontal lines aren't exactly perfect. That'll suggest that your wood is like it's a farm, that it's not all perfectly milled wood. And then it also kind of is like, the more unperfect your wood is, the more it would suggest that it's all homemade. And maybe it'll suggest that this is a very old picture from before mills were like invented to be as mainstream as they are now. I'm going to do that on both sides. Oh, I totally forgot to add a second little line up here. It happens. If you'd like to, go ahead and turn on a little bit of music. The only reason I don't have music is because on the video, I have a lot of students all around the world that take my classes, and I don't want to force you to have to listen to a type of music you don't want to. I mean, I like all kinds of genres. I'm all super artsy that way. Just like, you know, I like all different kinds of paintings and stuff. So same thing. I just didn't want you to force you to listen to country or hip hop or anything for too long. So go ahead and put whatever music you like that inspires you. Okay, I did those. Those were cool. But you know what? I'm feeling on my painting. Now, you don't have to do this if it's not working for you, but I feel that I need to add a couple more posts in here to get them to feel that they're closer together. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to add a straight vertical line here. And I'll add another one here. And that's about it. I mean, it's really just eyeball it. And then I think I need one more here for depth. Yeah, I'm liking it. It's a work in process, a labor of love. Take your time. Now, because I have that, I feel to balance out to the right, I feel that I need to do that as well over here. And it just kind of, it doesn't have to be one for one on the right and the left. It doesn't have to be at all. It's just, you know, just so it has a kind of a balance to it. the more posts you add, the longer this path is going to appear to be. Remember to keep the ones close to you far apart. I'm liking it. It's working. It's happening slowly. So now what I'm going to do is take some paint, and I'm going to, you know what? The thicknesses are not good. So I'm going to go one more pass since I got these all pretty up here. And I'm just going to make these guys extra doubly fatter. But I'm not going to go back over the ones on the top up high. I'm going to keep them skinny. Labor of love. The more you build them up, the cooler they're going to look. Now what I'm showing you here is this technique is perspective. And it's the perspective of us, the viewer, as to how we would see and what this would look like from our point of view of where we're standing. If you're interested in more detail to become better with perspective, I did write a book. I would say it's about an hour read. I tried to keep it really straight and to the point. I have a lot of photos in there that describe the topics and the ideas, and then I have a lot of pretty much everything I learned in the university, and then some. So check it out. I mean, it's a good read. I feel that once you become a master with understanding how perspective works, I know in my own experience, the better my paintings are turning out. The more they look together. Okay, so, you can find the book on my website. Go check there. It's like, I'm charging $5 for it right now, so it's not really about making money or anything. It's more about just, let me help you so you can help me, so I can help you so you can help me. You know, it's like back and forth. So, yeah, it just covers my costs so I can have it on the website and stuff. It's a digital document, but go check it out. I feel like you'd learn a lot from it because writing it really just brought back everything I learned at the university. It brought, you know, even though we know these things, it's good to have a remember and, oh yeah, okay, well, yeah, you know, and think about those things. And so it helped me a lot to remember and to go through the motions. And so if you read it, I'm pretty sure you're gonna like it. Okay, so now I'm taking, and I'm going to glob up some paint around here. And I'm just going to put like little dots. And these little globs of paint of where the snow has accumulated are going to get smaller and smaller the further we go. But I'm going to put them on every single little post. So there's kind of a uniformness there. Remember, little tiny dots far away. And then the closer you get, the bigger. You might get a post or two that might look a tad bit on the phallic side. It's kind of okay on this one. Like, we're not doing it on purpose. It's just kind of, it's how it worked out a little bit. Remember to make these little dots a little bit bigger when they come closer, like there's more of a pile of snow. Because we're closer, we see more detail. The things that are further away are more blurry. We don't see a lot of detail at all with those. You know what? Nope, this one I'm not going to. Not going to add that one. Just because it's like I'm here and I don't see the bottom of the post. I'll touch that up with black later. Go back to the original ones you did and see if maybe you should touch them up a little bit to make them a little bit bigger with the snow. A little more going on. So that way they stand out from the ones in the foreground. Or, excuse me, in the background. Background is farther away. I'm liking it. It's coming together. It's happening. Okay, so now we have the basics. We're still going to work on this, but let's give it a moment. We'll come back to it. Okay, so wash your brush. It's going to be a while till we use it again. So go ahead, wash it, get it dry, and put it off to the side. You never want to leave paint drying on your bristles, because then you kind of ruin your paint, because then it just dries and then they're all stuck together, and just don't do it. Save money. Okay, so now I'm going to go in with my fan brush. Now you can do this with a square, but I think the fan brush just makes it look that much cooler. So I'm going to be very light here. And I'm going to do that dry brushing like what we did for the moon. But I'm going to add it here to the side, and I'm going to be very horizontal, but I'm going to give some kind of personality over here, that they're horizontal with a slight curve to them. And I'm going to go back and forth, and what we're doing is we're making texture for the bottom of the trees, and we're texturizing the snow. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to texturize. They're relatively horizontal, but yeah, they're kind of sideways. Some areas allow the paint to glob on a little bit more than other areas. Less is more. We still want to see black, so don't cover up all your black. Ooh. All right, so that's about good right there. We don't need to do a whole lot. So now let's go ahead and work on the trees. I'm going to start my trees with green first, and then I'm going to start with green, and then at the end I'm going to add some white, and that'll be that there's snow on the trees. Yeah. As I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, am I sure? Yeah, no, I'm sure. Okay, so I feel like my green here is a tad bit on the dark side. I'm going to lighten mine up, because when I did my moon, it kind of had a turquoisey look to it, because I had added some white to my green, and it looked pretty good. If you don't have turquoise and you would like to use the turquoise color, you can get it by using white, the smallest splash of green, and blue. And you mix them together. Blue, green, and white. And more white, like 2 parts white, 1 part blue with a half a part of green. And you'll get a really nice turquoise color. And there's many hues, or excuse me, there's many values within the turquoise. So it's turquoise, but yet there's still many different lightnesses and darknesses of the turquoise. So I've loaded up my brush, mixed it around. I'm going to have a basic idea to let me know where my tree is going to be. Now I think a leaning tree is always pretty cool to have, but then it shows kind of sickness a little bit, or it shows the variety of that tree. So if you're going to have a leaning tree, I recommend putting less branches, because then it's like it's an older tree. So I'm going to do one right here, and I'm doing these little dots here of where the trunk would be. Now this is just me trying to figure out where I think that I could put this. I'm going to do one there. I'm going to have another shorter tree here. And then I'm going to have a really small one happen here. I want to cover up that big dot I had. I didn't like it. So I'm going to have to adjust and make this one a little taller, which therefore I need to make this one a little bit bigger. Now, the closer the tree gets to me, the fatter, wider, and the more of it I see, the farther away, the less I'm going to see detail. It's going to be a little bit more blurry. So that's how come I made this one tall, this one a little short, and then that one's going to be the shortest. Let's go over here on this side. I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm going to, I'm pretty much just covering up my boo-boos, honestly. So I'm going to make a tall one here. I'm not swooshing, I'm just dabbing with my brush It's going to come about meow. Then I'm going to do another one right here. And then between these two ones, I'm going to choose to do a smaller little guy. I do want to not cover up all of my pretty, all of the pretty snow and the stars that we've done. So I'm still, the top part, allow that to be naked, what it is. Don't put a tree there. So now I've got my brush. Notice how I have too much paint. It's caked on, don't like it. So I'm going to wipe some of it off. And remember how I told you about flicking this and putting your finger in there and getting these little things to separate? Get a lot of separation. The more separation you have on these, the cooler your trees are going to look. You want to have it clumped up, lots of separation. So I'm going to start at the top of the trees, work down. Now, I, at this moment, I have destroyed all my small little fan brushes, so I kind of have to suck it up with this one and use a big one. I'm of the mindset I like to use 2 to 3 different sizes, which means just, you know, how big this is, how big the fibers are, for fan brushes. If you use a tiny little fan brush, the top of your trees are going to be super awesome. And then you use the bigger one for the bottom of the trees. And I mean, you could use the smaller one the whole way through. But the top of the tree, I want it to be super sporadic. I allow a little bit of a bump from the top to be there from that line, but then I add a little bit. And I go back and forth, right to left, and I allow there to be a lot of black. I want to be able to see these, see the snow and the sky between branches. I'm going to zigzag. I'm not going to do horizontal lines. I'm going to zigzag. Back and forth. And I'm going to need to add paint. And remember, before, always make sure that you can get these little guys to separate. The more they separate, the more chaotic your tree will look. And the more chaotic your tree looks, the better it's going to be. Now, as I work my way, I'm dabbing. Dabbing, dabbing, dabbing. As I'm working down to the bottom, notice how my limbs are getting longer horizontally. So I'm kind of doing this in a triangle. I'm taking my time. It's okay if you can still see the bark in the middle. That's great. We do want to see the trunk a little bit shine through some of these branches. It's always easy to add and it's hard to take away. So less is more when you're doing these little dabs. You can swoosh it. If you swoosh it though, what's going to happen is your tree's going to look a little bit different. It'll be still going to be a tree, but it'll be slightly different. Now, I want this tree to be behind the fence. It's okay if you paint over the fence just ever so slightly, because then we'll just let it dry and we can repaint some white over it and it'll be just fine. So don't worry about that. Okay, so now to fix the tree, because it's not quite tree yet, I'm going to start at the bottom and I'm going to dab just the middle area. And by doing this, I'm allowing the middle part of this cone to appear as though there's more brushes and more thickness happening than there are on the sides of the cone. And it's going to make my tree appear to be a little bit more fuller. However, I'm not completely covering up. I'm not completely covering up the middle. I still can see some sky and some snowflakes between the branches. Remember, they get small if you have to like turn your brush a little bit at the top, like I am right here. I have to tilt it a little. And you just pretty much work it until you get something that you really like. You just keep on doing it, dabbing. Let's take a break from that one and come do another one just cause. Sometimes it's good to take a break from a tree and then come back to it with fresh eyes, and you can see where all the little happy mistakes you made that you're like, it's not that good. Okay. I'm going to do it the other way just to show you something, a different way to do the same thing. I'm going to start at the bottom and I'm going to zigzag up. But as I zigzag up, I'm being mindful that it's getting skinnier and skinnier as I go. See, look at that. Same thing. I like it, but maybe I can make it a tad bit more bushier right here in the middle. Less is more, don't overwork it. And there we go, there's a tree. I probably most likely will bring them down forward, but for the moment, I'm really liking what I got here. Now this tree, because I really like the tree that I did in the middle there, I'm going to make this guy, he's going to be the same pine tree, but he's going to be tall and skinny. And that way he's not really hiding all that pretty work of what I did with that little one. So I'm going to start at the top. Be very sporadic and loose. I'm going to work my way down, but I'm going to be very careful that my little cylinder here, that it's not getting too wide too fast, so I don't end up accidentally covering up that tree. I probably most likely that they will start to touch a little bit, and if they touch just ever so slightly, that's actually a good thing because that's overlapping. The more that you overlap in a painting, the cooler your paintings look, the more 3D, the more life and things you got going on. Now, with the way that you're tapping, try to make sure that you're tapping the bottom of your tree in the same way that you're tapping on your top of your tree, so that way it kind of looks cohesive. But we still want it to be very super random. And take a minute, go back up the middle just to get a little bit bushier in the middle of the tree. Like bushiness. Okay, I'm gonna give that one a minute. I'll come back. Let's do the trees on the other side. And take your time with this. Enjoy the process. I mean, this painting is a really quick painting. So, I mean, enjoy it. Take your time. Okay. So I'm going to just take a moment and paint my painting here. And I'm going to work on my trees. And I like to... It doesn't happen in a lot of my paintings, but every so often I come to a point where it's nice to have a happy, still silence for a minute. And so I like to take this time to meditate a little bit, to pray, and to just, you know, have a break from the world. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. If you'd like to meditate with me here, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Turn on some music if that helps. There have been times when my daughter was very little, she's 14 now, but when she was tiny and she was learning how to read, I would have her read me something, a little kid's book and stuff, and, you know, that was always cool. So yeah, just take a moment, and when I'm all done here, doing what I'm going to do, I'll continue talking again, and yeah, it should be, I don't know, 30 minutes maybe, I don't know, however long it takes. So enjoy the process. I will see you when I am done. I'm liking my trees. I think they're pretty good. So yeah, let's continue on from here. I have some more helpful suggestions. All right, so I'm going to add just a little bit of this to the path, and I'm going to be very light. I'm dry brushing, hardly applying any paint at all, just less is more. Oops. Less is more. Try not to cake it on too much. Just a little bit. It's really going to help for some shadows. When you put shadows in paintings, they end up way cooler. I'm going to do a little bit of that over here with my background. I'm going to do some dry brushing, just ever so slightly, just a little bit of it. I'm going to go over the fence just a tad bit, doing some dry brushing. Allowing a little bit of that to cover over the white. It'll give some shadows. Dry brushing, okay? So don't be caking on any paint. All right, so now that we have a nice kind of generous helping all over the blue, let's go ahead and touch up just a little bit with the white. So I'm going to go ahead and clean my brush and get all of the turquoise off as much as I can. Might take a couple times to wash your brush, because when we put the white, we really don't want to be blending any. If we have paint on our brush, it's going to come back over to the white that we're adding to the brush, and then we're going to have turquoise all over again. So go ahead and wash your Fran brush really good. I'm going to take a quick moment here, and I'm going to dry my painting all the way. I recommend at this point that you do the same thing for your painting. here and use just straight white with no turquoise. And this is very important that we take a moment and we make sure that the bristles are all separated. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to apply another layer of the tree. And this is going to be more of a dotty. I'm going to make sure that I dot a whole bunch. And what I'm doing is I'm applying snow to the tree and I'm just working it. Less is more. We don't want to hardly put any paint at all onto our tree. Less is more. So make sure you don't cover up all your sky between your branches. The birdies need a place to sit. So make sure you give the birdies a place to sit. Now we still want to see that turquoise. We want to see that turquoise and we want to see the black behind the branches. Remember, the bottom part wants to be dabbed in the same manner in which the top parts of the trees were dabbed, so that way they feel like they came from one tree. It's all connected. I'm going to do this to all of the trees in my painting. It doesn't matter if you start at the top or the bottom. What matters is you're dabbing and that you're being extremely sparing. And remember to keep flicking your brush so that way you can get them all separated. The more they separate, the more sporadic these little dots are going to be and the cooler your tree is going to look. Take your time. Make sure that you're only using pure white, and then also make sure that your blue, the turquoise, is completely dry. Otherwise, that white you dab on there is just going to lighten up your turquoise. It's going to mix on the canvas, and we don't want mixing on the canvas. This will give you brighter colors. This is considered monochromatic because it is one hue, and we are looking at the different shades within the hue. However, with this one, there aren't a lot of shades. It's straight turquoise and white, so it's still monochromatic, but it's not, it's very one-tonal. Two-tonal here, I guess. If I go over my fence, it's okay because I'm going to touch that all up in the end, so it'll be fine. Remember to leave space for the birdies to sit down on the branches. You could use a flat brush to do this. I just find that for this look, I notice for me, I get a better look when I'm just, allowing the fan brush to do its magic everywhere. I'm allowing little happy accidents to occur. With the flat brush, I feel as though I'm trying too hard to make it extra perfect. The more you make these trees not perfect and symmetrical, the awesomer they're going to look. And the more realistic they're going to start looking, like they are more foresty and they haven't been helped out in any way by humans. That they've just kind of, this is how they're growing up. All right. It's coming together good. I recommend going just one pass over the tree to apply the snow. And then at the end, once you've done all your trees, look at them and then see if maybe you want to touch it up and fix it. But one pass should be pretty good, really. Don't fret and don't go overboard. The more you're tapping and going over and over and over, the more you're going to cover up all that black underneath. And we want there to be space. I'm tapping. I'm not even swooshing. I'm tapping. liking my painting? It's slowly coming together. I hope you're liking your painting. You're doing a good job sticking in there. We've been painting for quite some time now. If you're feeling a little fatigued, that means you're doing good. You're giving it your all. I get fatigued when I paint, and I've been painting for a million years, and I still have moments where I'm like, whew, that's exhausting. There we go. I'm liking it. It's coming together. All right, so I'm going to fix my ground just a little bit. If you feel you need to do the same, do the same. If not, if you're happy with your ground, let it be. This tree for me feels as though they're floating. So I'm going to come up here and do some swishes and all the different ways I can do swishes on the sidelines, because then that's going to apply miniature hills. And I want there to be a little bit of a hill going on. I'm going to do the same thing over here. And you can indicate which way these little mounds are, you can indicate how they're swooping down and what direction these little mounds are going in. Okay, so I'm going to go back and forth and add another layer of white right here. I'm going to keep, when it comes to swooshing where my path is, I do want to keep that horizontal and go side to side with that. And that's really going to make the path stand out from the other land that is around the path. That's really what I want. I want it to stand out a lot. Now the path really should be a lot lighter than the side that is not in the path. That's more in the shadows, especially the reason why is because of the way the moon is shining. So I am going to make my path rather light. I still do want some areas where there is black on the path. I want that to show through. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of my turquoise and those little bumps I made earlier, I'm going to kind of darken them up a little bit so they're not going to be as vibrant white as the path itself. The way you swoosh it, in the direction you swoosh it, is going to show you how the pathway is and how that mound is occurring. Don't worry if you go over your fence a little bit, that's fine, especially when you're going over with the turquoise. Be more particular when you're going over the white in your fence. Try, like when you're doing the white, try not to go over your fence too much. Because then when you do go to fix your fence and to really get it standing out, you've already got so much white that it's like it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense as to where the post is going to be. It's going to kind of blend into itself. We don't want it to blend into itself. We want it to stand out. The more layers we add, the better and the cooler this is going to be. So be patient with yourself. It's going to happen. It just takes a little bit of a labor of love here. Remember, we're dry brushing. Dry brushing. That means you're hardly adding any paint. Less is more when you add the paint. Alright, so I've got my side a little bit darker. I've got more white in the pathway. Okay, so I'm going to take my brush, wash it. Every so often, even if you're working in the same colors, it's good to wash and clean your brush so that way the paint isn't drying and caking on your brush and ruining your brush, especially your fan brush. And I know we paid extra money to have these nice pretty fan brushes, so take care of them. Okay, so I'm liking it. It's coming together. Now, I feel that I can make my painting a tad more 3D by adding more trees. The other thing I want to take into consideration here is I do want my trees to, I want to be able to see the space and the sky and everything. So it's up to you as to how many you add into your painting. There is no correct number on how many trees you need to have. Okay, so now I'm going to take my liner brush, and for me, I need to add some more white onto my palette, and we're going to touch up the fence ever so slightly. And you know what, before I add the paint, let's take a quick moment here and use our handy dandy hair dryers and dry our painting. So that way, when we add the white for the path itself, that way we're not having issues with the paint mixing. Now I'm going to go ahead and use my liner brush and get out some fresh white paint onto my palette. If you already still have some clear white paint, just use that. Don't waste your paint. And with my liner brush, I'm going to go back over my post. Now, if you allow for some of that blue to still kind of be over parts of the post, what's going to happen is you're going to get this look that there's shadows in the post, that the posts aren't nice and pretty. So it's okay to leave some of that shadow. I'm taking a moment and dabbing the bottom of each of my posts to get some of that snow that's been all accumulating at the bottom here. Remember to take a moment, and these little lines that go back and forth, the wood that was between each post, make sure you cover them up just ever so slightly. I have a kitty over here in my art studio taking a bath. He's actually Mr. Itchy Pants. It's all wintry and his coat dries, so he's forever taking a bath. I'm so sad we had to put a little cone on him yesterday because he's bathing himself raw. Had to go get a steroid shot to help him feel better, poor guy. My husband came up with a nickname. He calls him Mr. Butt Cheeks. So he goes, paging Mr. Cheeks, Mr. Butt Cheeks. So cute. And then the cat comes. It's almost like he's a puppy. Alright, so I'm leaving just a tad bit of green here just to give a little bit of shadow in my wood. Remember to touch up those lines that go between. Mr. Kitty, I'm gonna have to put the cone back on if you don't stop. Okay. Sorry about that noise. Okay. Remember, keep using the liner brush. I find that liner brushes have made my paintings that much more cooler. So if you're not that good with a liner brush, do it like when you were learning how to do the ABCs and you were practicing with a pencil. Get a paper and just work on it a little bit. Like do like vertical lines, horizontal lines, and just do it on the paper practicing. The more you practice, the better you're going to be with it. And then when it comes time to paint and to hold your liner brush, you'll be a pro. Remember to be patient with yourself. You're not going to be the most amazing painter on your first painting. It ain't going to happen like that. Don't happen like that for anybody. I truly, fully believe that painting is a skill that we learn and is not something that we are born with. I sucked at art when I first tried. But the more I practice, the more I work on it, the better I'm getting. Don't feel like I'm all the way there yet. I feel like as time passes, I can see it within my own art that I'm getting better and better. So I'm constantly learning, and I've been painting for 20 years here. So be patient with yourself. Remember, skinny lines. Beautiful. You're doing a great job. Keep it up. We're almost done. All right. Okay, so this is pretty much the end of the painting. Now there are more things we can do. I want you to look at your painting and see, is there anything you'd like to touch up? Are there any little moments in your painting that you're like, I could have done that better? Now is the time to take the time and see about what you could touch up if you wanted to. I'm looking at my painting. I'm liking it. Pretty happy with where I've gone on the painting. But I kind of almost want it to look as though there is a little bit of a forest behind my tree. So it's not just like these three I want it to look as though there's more like oomph with the forest going on. So here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to take my liner brush. And for me, I need to make some more of that turquoise color. Go ahead and make some light turquoise color, which is that green, the white, and a little bit of blue. I'm gonna mix it in super, super good. Always make sure when you're mixing colors that you mix well. So, I mean, unless you're blending on the canvas. If you're blending on the canvas, you really don't need to mix all that well on your palette. Okay, so I've got a nice little turquoise. Go and wipe off my brush, make it a nice pretty point, and then I'm going to go back into the turquoise because I have a tiny little pretty point now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sticks in the background. So I'm going to take my brush, I'm going to go up and make little lines. And I'm going to do a ton of them. A ton of these little lines. Stay with me for a minute. It's going to look stupid at the beginning, but trust me, it's going to work out. Little skinny, skinny, skinny lines. I'm going to go in between each tree, and I'm going to do the same thing. Now what these are going to do is they're going to appear to be the trees that are in the background that are so far away that we can't see details, but we know they're there and we see them. So it's still going to look like some of the like dead trees. If you wanted to, you could go back and make some of these into actual trees. It's going to take a minute, okay? You're going to have to really build it up. So it's not going to happen all at once. It's going to look retarded at the beginning. Now, if you're happy with the denseness of your forest, don't do this. Only do this if you're like, you want to build up your forest and make your forest thicker. Make sure you make these lines really skinny. And then we want them to come all the way down so we can see like they're hidden behind the trees. It's going to take some time. If some of yours appears as though they're floating, bring the line down just ever so slightly. And that's pretty much it, honestly. So I'm going to take my brush, I'm going to wash it, I'm going to come back in, and I'm going to get some lines over here that are just straight white. And I'm going to add those in on the mix, like they got snow on them. So I'm kind of following the path that I already made of these other sticky type trees. And I'm doing this white line on the side of them. And it's just going to kind of start happening. So you're going to build it up. So I have the really super practically all the way skinny green. Then I'm going to come next to that skinny green. I'm going to add some white. The more that you do these, the more your background is going to appear as though it's a very thick wooded forest with lots of trees. Now, if you make one and it's hideous and it's horrible and you don't like it, just turn it into an actual tree, like what we did with the fan brush. But I would recommend, instead of using the fan brush, just make yours, make the branches using same kind of basic idea with, but instead of using a fan brush, just use your little liner brush, because these guys are like way off in the distance. And they don't have to be perfectly straight. They could be a little bendy. Little bendy's actually perfect, because then they'll look more uneven. And when they look more uneven, there's more detail. If you feel like maybe you've touched up too much white, you can go back over and add some more turquoise. If you wanted to, you could just add some of these to lines and just have them be turquoise and some just be white. I think it's cooler though if you add a little bit of both. Make sure you make them at varying heights. The more you vary the heights, the better. Notice how I haven't added any of these little lines at the middle of where the path is. It's by doing that, what I'm implying is that there's a hill here, so you can't see what's up and over the hill. The more you vary the heights, the better this is going to turn out. I'm liking mine. I think mine's pretty good. So now to blend it all in, I'm going to go back in with my fan brush, and then I'm going to just add in some of these spaces so I can blend it in. Like right here, I kind of went up and over some of my branches, but I don't want that to happen because I want it to appear as though this tree is in front of those trees that are, these trees are closer to me than those trees because they're way far away. So I'm going to take some white, and I'm just going to come in here and just do a little dab. And it's going to really cover up those lines that appear that they are above, in front of my trees. And I'm being very sporadic not to cover, like I'm not making more branches. I'm just covering up with a little bit here that, so they can overlap. If you need to, you could possibly go back into a little bit of the turquoise if you feel you need to. You can do the same on the other side. Make sure though that if, like right now, I'm going to go back into the white, I got a brush. I have to wipe off all of the paint from my brush, otherwise it's just not gonna, it's gonna blend too much. So I'm gonna go with a clean brush into the white, and I'm gonna do a once over here with the white and give it a highlight, and it really is gonna make these trees look as though they're more in the foreground. Then they're really gonna pop compared to those other trees. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the whole painting. I'm having a lot of fun. This was a good one. I enjoyed this. Thank you so much for painting with me. I really like it when you hang out with me and paint. Hate it when I'm painting by myself. It's not fun. So yeah, check out my other paintings. I got a whole bunch of cool ones on the website. Maybe you might find them cool and interesting. You might want to do them. On all my classes, I always try to teach something. So I don't know. Pick a topic and check out the website. Most likely, because I have a million paintings, I might have a topic up there, something cool that you might want to try and learn. And all these techniques are stuff I learned in college. They really are. And they're also techniques like throughout time that I've been working on myself and practicing. Like Bob Ross taught this technique of the brushes. However, I've kind of put my own little spin on what he was already kind of doing. So yeah, I might have another little class that you'd be interested in taking and seeing how I've taken what I've learned and kind of turned it into my own thing. And then also too, if you'd like to show me your painting, I'd love to see it. Send me like a private message or Or, you know, on social media, if you would love to show it to everybody, show it to everybody. I mean, I show my paintings all the time. I just love showing them to people. So, yeah, and then tag me in it, because if you tag me in it, then it's going to, the way the social media works, it'll send me a notification so I can go see how cool your painting turned out. And then also, you know, if you like this class, please give me a review. Let me know. My goal is to become a really good teacher. And if you don't communicate with me and let me know how you feel about the class I taught them, I won't get any better. So please help me get better and like tell me what you think. But yeah, give me constructive criticism, feedback, so I can learn from it and see how I can do better. And yeah, I will see you on the next class. Happy painting.